Nowadays, you can go on, you can have a conversation, you could be doing a bunch of different things and tie your shoe and you're still going to get it done. It's like, but actually staying out of that automatic zone and once in a while being completely present in those monotonous tasks, those monotonous days, and showing the same love and respect for those moments that you do in the grandest of moments or the most challenging moments in life. I think the physical side of training is such a great conduit to practice this aspect of growth and development. And when Nicole said that of show every bell love, it just rang so true in my mind. And I wanted to share that. So in training, we have our easy days, we have our challenging days, we have a lot of medium days in there. And I've found that the more you can work on your focus and your mental strength in those days, specifically on those medium and light days when you can half-ass it if you wanted to, but you still make sure that you get that focus in, those are when those challenging days come. You're going to be way more prepared for, and you're going to keep accelerating over and over again in your strength. So again, Nicole, appreciate that phrase. I'm using it numerous times since then. And yeah, I wanted to share it. So the second one I wanted to go into is after I talked with Garnett Strother today, or earlier this week, excuse me, he was telling me his whole story of his life. And before I get into that, the lesson that I brought out of this was what you hear in the macro doesn't have to affect you in the micro. Okay. And what I mean by that is Garnett's a man who is, grew up in the city, tough, childhood growing up, learned martial arts, had a daughter at 17 years old, dropped out of high school. And from that moment on, I mean, the story just continues, and you'll hear it on the episode when it's released, is he's turned into one of the most, deep and, best articulated coaches that I've talked to. He's writing a book right now called Kagami, which is the art of listening and the 5 pillars of communication. Went so deep down the aspects of communication, the different levels of it, how we are naturally inclined to be a certain way of how we interpret language and communication. It was one of the most fun conversations that I've had on the podcast and hearing his story. But when he talked about his life and what he's been able to accomplish and achieve, he said such interesting things. He's like, look, it's like by all the statistics, by all the means of what you would see just on a stat sheet, he's like, I was a 17-year-old young black man in New York City, dropped out of high school with a daughter. Like everything tells you that I'm not supposed to be where I am today. It's like if you just look at it on the macro scale. He's like, but I said, like, that's not going to be me. He made that decision and he changed it. And I've heard these stories before, and it just made me think so much, specifically with all the stats that we hear about, specifically in health and fitness, about the failure rate in goals. We all know the stats. We all hear, especially like the New Year's resolution stats, 90% of people, 95% of people fail after, 3 weeks of going to the gym. We all know those things, right? And coaches, clients alike, like it means it's an easy road to take to believe that you're just going to be one of those stats. But it doesn't mean that you can't do it. It plainly just does not. Sometimes you need to shut out that noise. Both things that we know are bad, like the mainstream news, that it's a fear-based type thing, but also on the personal development side. It's like we hear so many things of the stats of what the macro is, of like, well, this is the average person is going to do this in their life. The average is going to do this. And we don't think that it affects us so much, but we can naturally just start to believe, oh, well, this is how I'm supposed to act, or this is just going to be what I'm going to do. And it puts these false narratives into our mind of what our actual ability is, to accomplish what we want to achieve. And the reality is like, yeah, what you hear in the macro, yeah, that might be stats of it. The only thing I would take from that is, yeah, it might be a challenging road to do what you want to do, but that has no effect of the ability that you can actually achieve what you want to. So just wanted to bring that out, from hearing this from Garnett's mouth and just hearing this story and how easily we can look at stats and just make just assumptions of what that means for what we can do in our life or what a friend can do in their life or whatever that is. It has no merit on that at all of actually what you would, want to achieve. It might be a challenging thing, it might be, you might be faced with more challenges ahead of you in order to achieve it, but that doesn't mean that you can't achieve it. It has no merit on that.